They took my sister. The tiny whisper escaped from the 7-year-old boy's trembling lips as he stood before the most dangerous man in Harbor City. Tears streaked down his dirt-smudged face. Small hands clenched into desperate fists as he looked up with pleading eyes. Aiden Brooks didn't hesitate. The 27-year-old mafia boss immediately dismissed his bodyguards with a sharp gesture, crouching down to the child's level despite his immaculate suit. "When?" he demanded, voice calm but urgent as his calculating mind already began mapping possibilities. The boy pointed toward Westlake Park with a shaking finger. 10 minutes ago. Men in masks. White van, he stammered between ragged breaths. Mom's still searching. Police said it hasn't been long enough to help. A muscle twitched in Aiden's jaw as he processed the boy's fragmented description, his mind already calculating potential escape routes and holding locations. The Harbor District operated under his unspoken jurisdiction, every warehouse and shipping container accounted for in his mental inventory. The child's hands were scraped raw from falling while running to find help, tiny droplets of blood smearing his torn jeans. Such details rarely penetrated Aiden's professional detachment, yet something about this boy's desperate courage resonated with memories he'd spent years burying beneath ambition and power. Aiden's jaw tightened at the mention of law enforcement's dismissal. Children were absolutely off-limits in his code, a line no one crossed without severe consequences. Something dangerously protective ignited within him as he guided the boy toward his waiting Bentley. "What's your name?" Aiden asked, already typing rapid instructions to his security team, while his driver prepared for immediate departure. The sophisticated network that controlled the Harbor District would be mobilized within moments, eyes watching every street corner and dock entrance. Charlie hesitated briefly before climbing into the luxurious back seat. "Mom said never get in cars with strangers," he mumbled, even as exhaustion momentarily overtook his panic. The leather seat seemed to envelop his small frame as he blinked at the array of technology surrounding him. "Smart woman, your mother," Aiden replied, sliding in beside him. His voice dropped to a dangerous register that made even his veteran driver straighten to attention. "But today, you made the right call coming to me." The sleek vehicle pulled alongside the park, where a woman paced frantically near the playground, phone pressed to her ear. Her chestnut hair whipped around her face as she argued with someone, free hand gesturing emphatically while desperation etched itself across her features. Charlie tumbled from the car shouting, "Mom!" before she could process the luxury vehicle or the imposing figure emerging behind her son. Relief flashed across her face, quickly morphing into protective suspicion as she pulled Charlie close, shielding him instinctively. Aiden assessed her in one comprehensive glance. The worn but carefully maintained clothes, the protective stance, the intelligence behind her wary green eyes. "I understand your daughter has been taken," he stated without pretense. "I have resources to find her within hours, not days." The woman's grip tightened on her son's shoulders, wariness battling with desperation. "Why would you help us?" she asked, voice barely steady as she fought to maintain composure. The stranger before her radiated power and danger in equal measure. Charlie looked up at his mother with surprising conviction. "He made calls and everyone listened, Mom. He can find Zoe." The child's simple assessment of power cut through adult complexities, focused only on what mattered, bringing his sister home. Aiden maintained a respectful distance, recognizing her maternal instinct to protect her remaining child from potential threats. "Every minute counts in these situations," he explained, keeping his tone measured. "My resources aren't constrained by protocols or jurisdictions. I'm Rebecca," she finally offered, decision made as she extended her hand with surprising steadiness. Time was slipping away, and whatever this man's motives, he represented Zoe's best chance. "She's 12, has braces, and was wearing a red hoodie." Aiden's phone buzzed with incoming information as they spoke. Security cameras caught a partial plate heading east toward the industrial district, he announced, already guiding them toward his vehicle with newfound urgency. "We have a 20-minute window before they reach the docks." Rebecca climbed into the unfamiliar luxury car, keeping Charlie pressed against her side as the vehicle accelerated smoothly into traffic. Her mind raced through scenarios, each more terrifying than the last as she fought to maintain composure for her son's sake. "Do you have a photo?" Aiden asked, his attention divided between his phone and the distraught mother beside him. His network was already scanning traffic cameras across the eastern corridor, while teams positioned themselves strategically throughout the harbor. With trembling fingers, Rebecca unlocked her phone and pulled up a recent picture of Zoe. Her daughter's smile beamed from the screen, braces gleaming and eyes crinkled with happiness, completely unaware of the danger that would find her just days later. The photo captured Zoe mid-laugh during their weekend hike at Blue Ridge Overlook, her auburn hair catching sunlight through forest canopy. Rebecca remembered that moment vividly. Their rare day off together, picnic lunch packed despite tight finances, the children's delight at simple pleasures she struggled to provide consistently. Aiden studied the image with unexpected tenderness, his analytical gaze softening momentarily as he absorbed details beyond mere identification purposes. "She has your smile," he observed quietly, the personal comment slipping through his professional facade before he returned to tactical planning. "Perfect," Aiden murmured, immediately sending the image to multiple contacts with encrypted instructions. His efficiency spoke of experience with urgent situations, though Rebecca couldn't bring herself to question exactly what kind of emergencies this man typically handled. The car turned sharply toward the industrial district, leaving behind residential comforts for increasingly gritty surroundings. Rebecca stared out at abandoned warehouses and shipping containers, her anxiety mounting as she realized how many hiding places existed in this labyrinth. "Why Zoe?" Aiden asked suddenly, eyes narrowing as he considered potential motivations. "Random kidnappings are rare," he continued, watching Rebecca's reaction carefully, especially with this level of planning and execution. Rebecca shook her head, bewilderment evident in her expression. "We're nobody," she whispered, the painful truth of their ordinary struggles spilling out. "I work 2 jobs just to make rent in a decent school district. We don't have money for ransom." Charlie leaned forward from his mother's protective embrace, his young face suddenly serious. "The man watching us at school last week had the same van," he stated with childlike certainty. "I told Zoe, but she said I was being dramatic." Rebecca's head snapped toward her son, shock evident in her widened eyes. "What man, Charlie? Why didn't you tell me someone was watching you?" The revelation added another layer of horror to an already unbearable situation. "I didn't want to worry you more," Charlie admitted, lower lip trembling as guilt washed over his small features. "You already work so much and come home tired." Zoe said she'd handle it. Aiden exchanged a meaningful glance with his driver as new information altered their approach. "Targeted, not opportunistic," he stated flatly, already adjusting parameters on his phone. "That changes our search pattern and narrows potential locations." The car slowed as they approached a section of warehouses near the eastern dockyard. Aiden's phone lit up with an incoming message that made his expression darken dangerously. "They've switched vehicles, but we caught them on a security camera 3 minutes ago." Rebecca pressed her fingertips against cold window glass, staring at the maze of industrial buildings before them. "She must be so scared," she whispered, the thought of her daughter's terror threatening to unravel her fragile composure completely. Charlie's small hand slipped into his mother's, squeezing with surprising strength. "The man who took her was big, but Mr. Aiden is scarier," he stated with absolute conviction, his childlike assessment bringing an unexpected moment of hope to the desperate situation. Aiden directed his driver to stop at a strategic distance, unwilling to alert the kidnappers to their approach. "Stay here," he instructed Rebecca firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument as he prepared to exit the vehicle. "Charlie needs you safe." The warehouse district's familiar grime and decay contrasted sharply with Rebecca's ordered world of classroom schedules and bedtime stories. She surveyed the rusted metal structures and abandoned equipment, realizing how invisible such places remained to ordinary citizens navigating their daily routines. Aiden checked his watch. Precisely 97 minutes had passed since Charlie first approached him on Oak Ridge Avenue. In his experience, the first 2 hours of a kidnapping determined survival odds with mathematical precision, each passing minute diminishing chances by calculable percentages that he refused to share with Rebecca. "I'm coming with you," Rebecca countered immediately, maternal determination overriding any sense of self-preservation. Her eyes locked with his, challenging the man who clearly wasn't accustomed to having his orders questioned. "She's my daughter." Something resembling respect flickered across Aiden's features, before he nodded once, retrieving a sleek phone from the car's console. "Take this. Direct line to me," he explained, already coordinating with his team through his earpiece. "First sign of trouble, you take Charlie and run." The industrial complex sprawled before them like a rusted maze, the setting sun casting long shadows between abandoned equipment and weathered buildings. Aiden moved with practiced stealth, signaling for Rebecca to follow his path exactly as they advanced. 2 of Aiden's men emerged silently from different directions, acknowledging their boss with subtle nods, before pointing toward a warehouse at the far edge of the property. The fading daylight glinted off something metallic as one passed Aiden, a compact object Rebecca couldn't identify. 3 men inside, the taller security operative reported in a low voice, maintaining a professional distance from Rebecca and Charlie. Girl is in the northeast corner, appears unharmed but restrained. They're waiting for a boat that docks in 40 minutes. Rebecca's breath caught painfully at the confirmation that Zoe was alive, relief mingling with renewed urgency as the implications of waiting for a boat registered fully. They were planning to transport her daughter somewhere else, somewhere they might never find her. Aiden absorbed the information with cold calculation, his expression hardening as he issued precise instructions to his team. The transformation from the man who had gently addressed Charlie to this commanding presence was jarring, yet oddly reassuring under the circumstances. "I need you to wait here with Mac," Aiden told Rebecca, gesturing toward one of his most trusted men. His tone remained kind but firm as he added, "Charlie stays completely out of sight. No matter what sounds you hear, don't come inside until I call." Charlie tugged at Aiden's sleeve before he could turn away, his small face serious beyond his years. "My sister has asthma," he whispered urgently. "Her inhaler is in her backpack. She gets scared and then can't breathe good." The information altered Aiden's approach immediately, urgency replacing methodical planning as he signaled to his team with new directives. Medical complications meant time was even more critical than they'd initially calculated, especially with Zoe likely experiencing extreme stress. 4 men moved into position around the warehouse with practiced precision, communication flowing through nearly imperceptible gestures and earpiece confirmations. Rebecca watched in stunned silence, suddenly grasping the magnitude of resources this stranger had mobilized for her daughter. 2 minutes, Aiden stated, checking his watch before meeting Rebecca's eyes with unexpected gentleness. "When this is over, we'll need to talk about why someone targeted your family specifically. There are patterns here that don't make sense." Before Rebecca could respond, Aiden had vanished into the shadows between buildings, moving with lethal purpose toward the warehouse where her daughter was being held. The last crimson rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon, plunging the dockyard into darkness. The abandoned warehouse stood against the night sky like a hulking beast, its broken windows reflecting moonlight in jagged patterns. Rebecca pressed Charlie closer as they waited behind a stack of shipping containers, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. Mac, Aiden's trusted security man, kept a vigilant eye on the perimeter while maintaining constant communication through his earpiece. His steady presence provided unexpected reassurance as Rebecca whispered quiet comfort to Charlie, whose small body trembled against hers. The silent efficiency of Aiden's team spoke of military precision, each man moving with purpose to predetermined positions around the warehouse. No wasted motion, no hesitation, just the fluid coordination of professionals who clearly operated outside normal constraints. A soft crackle from Mac's earpiece preceded his subtle nod toward Rebecca. "They've established visual confirmation of your daughter," he informed her quietly. "Mr. Brooks says she appears uninjured but frightened, exactly where our intel placed her." Rebecca bit her lip hard enough to draw blood, the metallic taste grounding her as waves of conflicting emotions threatened to overwhelm rational thought. Hope warred with paralyzing fear, while gratitude toward this mysterious benefactor battled with suspicion about his motives. Charlie tugged at his mother's sleeve urgently, pointing toward a dark figure moving along the warehouse roofline with cat-like grace. "Is that one of the bad guys?" he whispered, eyes wide as he tracked the shadow's progress toward a skylight. "One of ours," Mac assured him with a hint of pride in his otherwise professional demeanor. "Best infiltration specialist on the eastern seaboard, former special forces before Mr. Brooks recruited him personally." The waiting became its own form of torture as minutes stretched impossibly, marked only by Rebecca's racing heartbeat and Charlie's increasingly tight grip on her hand. No sounds emerged from the warehouse, either a testament to Aiden's team's stealth or a worrying indicator of complications. Suddenly, a brief flash of light from inside the warehouse caught Rebecca's attention, followed by complete darkness as the entire block's power grid went dead. The strategic blackout plunged the industrial zone into an inky void, broken only by distant city lights. Mac immediately positioned himself protectively before Rebecca and Charlie, his posture alert, but unsurprised by the development. "Planned disruption," he explained tersely. "Cuts their communications and gives us the advantage with thermal imaging." Charlie pressed closer to his mother, uncharacteristically quiet, as understanding dawned in his young eyes. "Mister, Aiden planned everything," he whispered, with a child's simple faith in adult capability. He's like the heroes in my video games, but real. 3 rapid clicks sounded from Mac's earpiece, causing him to straighten immediately. They've secured the primary entrance, he reported, checking his watch with military precision. Secondary team confirms the loading dock is contained. Extraction underway. A muffled thud echoed across the compound, followed by the distinct sound of breaking glass that made Rebecca flinch instinctively. Mac remained impassive, his focus entirely on the warehouse as he monitored the operation through his communications channel. The night air carried faint shouts, then silence, heavier and more significant than before. Rebecca held her breath until her lungs burned, counting seconds that stretched into a torturous eternity while clutching Charlie's small hand like a lifeline. Mac's earpiece crackled once more before his professional facade cracked with the faintest smile. "Package secured," he announced, the formal terminology failing to mask the genuine relief in his voice. "Mr. Brooks is bringing her out personally. Hostiles neutralized." The warehouse door swung open with a metallic groan that shattered the tense silence. Rebecca strained to see through the darkness, her entire being focused on the shadowy figures emerging from the building's gaping entrance. Aiden appeared first, his imposing silhouette unmistakable even in near-total darkness. In his arms, he carried a small form wrapped in what appeared to be his suit jacket, Zoe's red sneakers dangling visibly as he moved swiftly toward their position. Blood stained the cuff of Aiden's once immaculate shirt, though whether his or someone else's remained unclear in the shadows between warehouses. His expression revealed nothing as he approached, that same controlled composure that had initially intimidated Rebecca, now providing strange reassurance amid chaos. The weight of Zoe in his arms seemed to transform him momentarily from hardened crime boss to something unexpectedly gentle. Despite his dangerous reputation, he cradled the girl with practiced care, supporting her head against his shoulder as naturally as if he routinely carried sleeping children to safety. Rebecca's legs nearly buckled as she stumbled forward, releasing Charlie's hand in her desperate rush to reach her daughter. Time seemed to slow as Aiden carefully transferred Zoe into her mother's trembling arms, the girl's tear-streaked face buried immediately against Rebecca's neck. "Mild sedative," Aiden explained quietly, supporting Rebecca's elbow as she adjusted to her daughter's weight. "They were keeping her compliant for transport. Medical team is standing by, but her vitals are strong and airways clear." Zoe stirred against her mother's embrace, eyelids fluttering as she struggled against the medication's effects. "Mom?" she mumbled, confusion evident in her voice as she attempted to orient herself in the unfamiliar surroundings. Charlie darted forward with a cry of relief, wrapping his small arms around his sister's legs, as Rebecca held her tightly. The family reunion created a momentary bubble of privacy that even Aiden's watchful team respected with tactical distance. Security personnel emerged from the warehouse in practiced formation, several escorting 3 handcuffed men, whose subdued demeanors contrasted sharply with their imposing physical builds. One kidnapper sported a spectacular black eye while another limped noticeably. "Harbor police will find them secured at the main gate with evidence of trafficking operations," Aiden stated matter-of-factly, watching his team efficiently process the scene. "Anonymous tip ensuring proper charges without complications regarding our involvement." Rebecca finally tore her eyes from Zoe's face to look at the man who had orchestrated her rescue. "You could have been killed," she whispered, the full magnitude of his intervention beginning to register, as shock gave way to comprehension. Something unreadable flickered across Aiden's features, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked by practiced control. "Low probability," he responded with characteristic understatement, adjusting his cufflinks as if they hadn't just executed a paramilitary operation. Zoe's breathing suddenly hitched, a wheezing sound that instantly commanded Rebecca's complete attention. "Her inhaler," she gasped, panic rising as her daughter's airways began constricting under stress, despite the sedative's lingering effects. Before Rebecca could even complete her thought, Aiden produced a small red inhaler from his pocket. "Found in her backpack, as Charlie mentioned," he explained, passing it to Rebecca with efficiency that belied his obvious concern. The inhaler bore Zoe's name in careful permanent marker, Rebecca's own handwriting from the school year's beginning, alongside emergency contact numbers and allergy information. This small, ordinary object, connecting their normal life to this extraordinary night, created a surreal bridge between separate worlds colliding in crisis. Aiden's hand lingered near Rebecca's slightly longer than necessary during the exchange, the brief contact communicating support beyond words. His resources might control half the city, yet this moment revealed a different kind of power, the quiet strength required to remain steady when others faltered. With practiced movements born from years managing her daughter's condition, Rebecca administered the medication while murmuring reassurances. The familiar routine created a strange moment of normalcy amidst the extraordinary circumstances of their reunion. A sleek medical vehicle approached silently, its lights purposely dimmed to avoid drawing attention to the operation. Two professionals emerged with emergency equipment, moving with the same disciplined efficiency that characterized all aspects of Aiden's organization. Aiden conferred briefly with his security team before returning to Rebecca's side. "We need to move quickly," he advised, gesturing toward a different vehicle than the one they'd arrived in. "This location is compromised, and your daughter needs proper medical assessment." The journey from the industrial complex to Aiden's secure medical facility passed in a blur of streetlights and whispered reassurances. Zoe remained drowsy but stable, her head resting in Rebecca's lap, while Charlie maintained a protective grip on his sister's hand. "The men who took Zoe," Rebecca finally asked, voice low to avoid disturbing her children. "Who were they? What did they want with my daughter?" The question had burned within her since the moment Charlie delivered the devastating news of his sister's abduction. Aiden's expression hardened as he studied something on his phone, surveillance images and identification documents that painted a disturbing picture. Human trafficking operation with connections to an international syndicate targeting specific demographics for overseas clients. Rebecca's face drained of color as the horrific implications sank in. "You mean they were going to—" She couldn't complete the sentence, her mind refusing to verbalize the nightmare fate Aiden's intervention had prevented for her daughter. "They never had a chance," Aiden stated with quiet certainty, his tone leaving no doubt about what would have happened to anyone attempting to harm Zoe once he became involved. The underlying danger in his voice should have frightened Rebecca. Instead, it reassured her. The medical facility occupied the entire top floor of an unmarked building in Harbor City's financial district, its state-of-the-art equipment rivaling any hospital emergency room. Professional staff greeted them with practiced efficiency, immediately focusing on Zoe's condition. Charlie refused to leave his sister's side, his young face set with determination that brooked no argument from even the most experienced medical personnel. "I'm staying with her," he declared, climbing onto the examination bed despite protocols clearly designed to prevent exactly that. Rebecca watched as physicians conducted thorough examinations, confirming that beyond mild sedation and emotional trauma, Zoe had escaped physical harm. The competence surrounding them reinforced her growing realization about the extent of Aiden's influence and resources. Aiden maintained a respectful distance from the medical procedures, engaged in quiet conversation with his security chief, while occasionally glancing toward the family with an expression Rebecca couldn't quite decipher. Something beyond professional obligation reflected in his watchful gaze. Medical staff moved with practiced efficiency, their credentials suggesting backgrounds in emergency trauma and pediatric care rather than standard clinic experience. Rebecca wondered briefly how many gunshot wounds and suspicious injuries these professionals had treated without documentation, their skills apparently reserved exclusively for Aiden's organization. The examination room's cutting-edge equipment and pharmaceutical supplies rivaled any hospital's emergency department, yet existed completely outside regulatory oversight. This parallel medical system operating in shadows represented another layer of Aiden's influence extending beyond legitimate business ventures into essential services, maintaining his operations' independence. "They knew her routine," Aiden stated when Rebecca finally joined him by the panoramic windows overlooking the city lights. "The park, her asthma, the timing between your jobs, all indicating surveillance over multiple weeks before making their move." Rebecca pressed her palms against cool glass, steadying herself against revelations that continued to shatter her perception of their ordinary life. "But why us? We're completely unremarkable. I teach elementary school and wait tables. We barely make ends meet." Aiden hesitated, clearly weighing how much information to share while respecting her fragile emotional state. "Your former husband's gambling debts," he finally explained, watching her reaction carefully. "He owed significant sums to dangerous people before disappearing 2 years ago." The revelation struck Rebecca like physical blow, memories of her ex-husband's promises and subsequent abandonment taking on sinister new dimensions. "He left us with nothing," she whispered, anger displacing shock as pieces aligned into horrifying clarity. "They took Zoe as payment," Aiden confirmed, his controlled tone failing to completely mask his disgust at the arrangement. "Your daughter for canceled debt. Standard practice in certain circles when conventional collection becomes impossible." Charlie appeared beside them, his small hand slipping into Aiden's with natural trust that momentarily stunned the hardened crime boss. "Thank you for saving my sister," the boy said simply, exhaustion evident in his drooping shoulders, but gratitude shining in his eyes. The next morning found them in Aiden's penthouse, overlooking Harbor City's glittering skyline, the children sleeping peacefully in a guest suite after their ordeal. Rebecca cradled a steaming cup of coffee between trembling hands, the adrenaline crash leaving her exhausted, yet unable to rest. "Your husband worked for me briefly," Aiden revealed, breaking the contemplative silence as he joined her by the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Low-level accounting position, access to financial data but not operations. He skimmed funds, assuming we wouldn't notice." Rebecca's bitter laugh held no humor, as pieces of her past rearranged themselves into painful new patterns. "Classic Scott, always looking for easy money without consequences," she murmured, memories of unexplained cash gifts and sudden disappearances gaining sinister context. The city sprawled below them like a living entity, early morning fog rolling in from the harbor as Aiden studied her reaction with careful assessment. "When he disappeared, we assumed he'd met with an unfortunate accident, not uncommon in his circles. Instead, he left us as collateral," Rebecca concluded, anger flaring briefly before dissolving into weary resignation. Typical that even his absence would eventually endanger his children. Parental responsibility was never his strong suit. Aiden moved toward a sleek console table, retrieving a secure tablet that displayed information even Rebecca's untrained eye recognized as highly classified. "Your family remains at risk while those behind the operation believe they can still collect on Scott's debt," he explained. The gravity of their situation settled around Rebecca's shoulders like a physical weight. "We can't go home, can we?" she asked softly, already knowing the answer, yet needing to hear it confirmed. "Our entire life is compromised." "Not permanently," Aiden assured her, unexpected gentleness in his tone as he outlined their options. "My security team has secured your apartment and retrieved essential items. The children's school has been informed of a family emergency requiring temporary absence." Rebecca set her cup down with deliberate care, turning to face the man who had irrevocably altered her family's trajectory within hours of meeting them. "Why are you helping us? Not just the rescue, but all of this protection afterwards. What do you gain?" Something shifted in Aiden's usually guarded expression, a flash of genuine emotion before his practiced composure reasserted itself. "My sister was taken when I was 9, he admitted, the revelation clearly costing him considerable effort. Nobody came for her. Understanding dawned across Rebecca's features as she saw beyond the powerful exterior to the wounded child who had shaped this man's code. "I'm sorry," she whispered simply. No platitudes or empty comfort, just acknowledgement of a shared pain across very different lives. The penthouse intercom chimed softly, interrupting the moment of unexpected connection. "Sir, Mr. Harrison reports that we've identified the organization's local leadership. Financial trails confirm international connections as suspected," his security chief announced. Aiden's expression hardened as he returned to the coldly efficient leader Rebecca had glimpsed during the rescue operation. "Tell Harrison to implement Protocol 7, full surveillance, asset freeze, and information extraction," he directed, voice dropping to that dangerous register. Rebecca shivered involuntarily at the transformation. This version of Aiden existed in a world of consequence beyond her comprehension. Protocol 7 undoubtedly involved methods she'd rather not contemplate, yet these same ruthless capabilities had saved her daughter when conventional protection failed completely. The duality created uncomfortable cognitive dissonance, gratitude intertwined with moral uncertainty, as she recognized that traditional boundaries between right and wrong blurred when protecting loved ones. The system had failed her family while this man who operated outside its constraints had moved heaven and earth within hours of meeting them. Charlie appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep, and eyes still heavy with exhaustion from the previous day's trauma. "Zoe's asking for pancakes," he announced with the resilience unique to children, adapting to their extraordinary circumstances with remarkable flexibility. "Chef makes excellent blueberry pancakes," Aiden responded without hesitation, immediately shifting from ruthless strategist to attentive host. "I believe there's chocolate milk in the refrigerator as well, a critical accompaniment to proper breakfast pancakes." 3 weeks passed in the safety of Aiden's heavily secured penthouse, a strange interlude where normalcy gradually rebuilt itself within extraordinary circumstances. The children adapted quickly, Zoe's nightmares diminishing as Aiden's personal therapist helped her process the trauma. Rebecca marveled at the transformation in her usually reserved daughter as she watched Zoe excitedly showing Aiden her science project through the office doorway. The girl who had once been paralyzed by shyness now confidently explained chemical reactions to one of Harbor City's most feared men. Charlie had appointed himself Aiden's unofficial assistant, trailing him through the penthouse with notepad in hand, solemnly recording important business stuff with the dedicated seriousness only a 7-year-old could maintain. More surprising was Aiden's patient indulgence of the arrangement. "Your organization runs more legitimate businesses than I expected," Rebecca commented one evening as they reviewed documents from her remote teaching position. The school had been surprisingly accommodating about her family emergency, unaware she was residing with the city's most powerful crime boss. Aiden's rare smile briefly transformed his usually stern features as he considered her observation. "Empire diversification. Critical for longevity and stability," he explained, the business terminology contrasting with the warmth in his eyes as he watched Charlie constructing an elaborate fort in the living room. Rebecca had begun noticing these moments of unguarded humanity with increasing frequency. How he checked Zoe's inhaler supplies daily, remembered Charlie's dinosaur preferences, or ensured Rebecca's favorite tea was always stocked. Small considerations revealing the man behind the carefully maintained facade. "We've neutralized the immediate threat to your family," Aiden announced during dinner, his casual tone belying the significance of his words. "The organization's local operation has been thoroughly dismantled, leadership removed, and your ex-husband's debt officially expunged from their records." Both children looked up from their pasta with wide eyes, clearly understanding more than Rebecca had realized. "Does that mean we're safe now?" Zoe asked quietly, her fork suspended mid-air as she awaited the answer that would determine their future. "It means you have options," Aiden replied carefully, his gaze meeting Rebecca's across the table. "Your apartment has been secured with upgraded systems, or there's a property near Westlake with excellent security features available if you prefer a fresh start." Charlie's fork clattered against his plate as he processed the implications. "But we wouldn't see you anymore," he stated with child's directness that cut through adult complexities. "You're part of our family now. You can't just disappear." Rebecca watched something complex flicker across Aiden's expression, longing tempered by resignation, as if the boy had articulated a truth he hadn't permitted himself to acknowledge. "That's not entirely how adult relationships work, buddy," he began awkwardly. "Why not?" Zoe challenged unexpectedly, her newfound confidence extending to questioning authority figures. "You like us, we like you, and Mom smiles different when you're in the room. I may be 12, but I'm not blind." Warmth flooded Rebecca's cheeks as her daughter's astute observation hung in the air between them. "Perhaps this conversation requires adult privacy," she suggested, mortification battling with something dangerously close to hope as she met Aiden's startled gaze. Later that evening, after the children had finally surrendered to sleep, Rebecca found Aiden on the penthouse terrace, silhouetted against the city lights. "They've grown attached to you," she offered softly, joining him at the railing. "Not just gratitude, genuine attachment. They deserve stability, normality, everything my life can't offer," Aiden responded, conflict evident in his unusually unguarded expression. "Your daughter deserves school dances and science fairs without armed security scanning for threats." Rebecca studied his profile in the ambient city glow, seeing beyond the power and danger to something unexpectedly vulnerable. "Perhaps what they deserve is happiness and protection, both of which you've provided more effectively than anyone in their lives." Aiden reached for her hand, a gesture so uncharacteristically uncertain it revealed volumes about his internal conflict. "My world doesn't forgive weakness or vulnerability," he admitted quietly, thumb tracing absent patterns across her knuckles. "Yet seeing you with the children has made me question priorities I once considered immutable." The harbor lights reflected in the whiskey he'd barely touched, amber liquid catching city glow as Rebecca contemplated the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them to this moment. A dangerous man standing at a crossroads, contemplating a path he'd never considered viable, one involving school recitals and family dinners alongside his empire of carefully calculated power. Streetlights illuminated the subtle changes in Aiden's expression as her words penetrated carefully constructed defenses. For someone accustomed to transaction-based relationships and loyalty purchased rather than earned, the children's genuine attachment represented unfamiliar territory navigated without his usual strategic advantage. The penthouse terrace offered panoramic views of Harbor City's glittering skyline, the same streets where Aiden had built his empire through calculated decisions and controlled violence. Yet Rebecca sensed that despite commanding vast resources and wielding significant influence, true connection had remained elusive until a desperate boy approached him on a suburban street. The transition happened gradually, then suddenly, Rebecca and the children returning to a new home near Westlake Park, while maintaining a connection with Aiden that defied conventional definition. Security systems, driver services, and weekend visits created a strange bridge between their worlds. "You're dating a mafia boss," her colleague Jennifer whispered incredulously during lunch break, having spotted Aiden's distinctive car at school pickup the previous day. "The same man whose name makes hardened criminals cross the street when he's approaching." Rebecca stirred her coffee thoughtfully, no longer shocked by the dual nature of the man who had become central to their lives. "I'm dating Aiden," she corrected gently. "The man who reads Charlie bedtime stories using different voices for each character and checks Zoe's science homework." 3 months into their unconventional relationship, Rebecca stood in Aiden's walk-in closet, adjusting his tie for a rare formal event he'd invited her to attend. "Your associates will have opinions about your involvement with a kindergarten teacher," she noted, smoothing the Italian silk with careful fingers. "My associates' opinions ceased mattering the moment a 7-year-old boy trusted me to save his sister," Aiden replied, capturing her hands in his. "Some choices transcend business considerations. You and the children have become non-negotiable priorities." The charity gala represented Rebecca's first official appearance in Aiden's public world, her elegant burgundy dress a stark contrast to her usual practical wardrobe. Whispers followed them across the ballroom, as Harbor City's elite reassessed the power dynamics of a man they feared appearing genuinely captivated by a woman from outside their privileged circle. "Brooks has gone soft," a business rival muttered to his companion, voice carrying just far enough for Aiden to overhear as they passed. Domestic bliss dulling his edge, playing family man with some rescue project and her kids. Rebecca felt Aiden tense beside her, his hand tightening momentarily around hers before relaxing with deliberate control. "Not worth the cleaning bill for my suit," he murmured in her ear, his restraint more telling than any confrontation about how his priorities had shifted. Later that evening, as they swayed together on the dance floor, Rebecca observed the careful distance maintained by other attendees, respect and fear creating a perimeter around them, even in the crowded ballroom. "Is it always like this for you?" she asked softly. "Isolation is typically an occupational advantage," Aiden admitted, his usual guardedness softened by the intimacy of their dance. "Until recently, I considered it a necessary component of effective leadership, rather than a sacrifice." The evening ended abruptly when Aiden's security chief approached with urgent information requiring immediate attention, a familiar interruption in their developing relationship. "Family emergency," Aiden explained to his business associates with newfound ease in the deception. Rebecca waited in the car, concern mounting as Aiden engaged in intense conversation with his team outside the venue. His expression remained controlled, but she had learned to read the subtle indicators of serious trouble in his posture and gestures. "Your ex-husband has resurfaced," Aiden explained, once they were moving through the city streets, his calm delivery failing to mask the danger implicit in his words. "Scott apparently feels sufficient time has passed to attempt collecting on information he stole before disappearing." Fear flashed briefly across Rebecca's features before resolving into determined anger. "He doesn't get to disrupt our lives again," she stated firmly, years of single-parenting hardship having forged unbreakable protective instincts. "The children have finally found stability and happiness." Aiden studied her with newfound appreciation, recognizing the steel beneath her gentle exterior that had first drawn him beyond mere obligation. "I've always handled threats efficiently," he noted with careful neutrality. "However, given your involvement, I wanted to discuss options rather than proceed unilaterally." Their worlds had truly merged in that moment, Rebecca's unwavering maternal protection aligning perfectly with Aiden's strategic elimination of threats, creating something formidable that transcended their different backgrounds. "We protect our family," she stated simply, the plural pronoun acknowledging what had gradually become truth. The resolution came not through violence, but unexpected redemption, when Scott, confronted by Aiden's operatives, revealed his desperate attempt to warn Rebecca about remaining danger from international connections still targeting the children. His information, though outdated, provided valuable confirmation of Aiden's existing intelligence. "He's not the same selfish man who abandoned us," Rebecca acknowledged after reviewing the security footage Aiden provided. "Still fundamentally flawed, but attempting something resembling responsibility, however misguided the execution. 1 year after Charlie's desperate whisper had changed their lives forever, Rebecca stood in Aiden's penthouse, now legally their shared home, watching her children happily preparing for a family dinner with the man who had transitioned from savior to partner to father figure through quiet consistency and unwavering protection. The engagement ring caught afternoon sunlight, its subtle elegance reflecting Aiden's understanding of Rebecca's preference for meaningful over extravagant. He had presented it not with grand gestures, but during a quiet moment after the children were asleep, acknowledging that their unconventional beginning had evolved into something neither could have anticipated, yet neither would relinquish. Behind closed doors, Aiden had begun the complex process of transitioning his organization toward legitimate enterprises exclusively, a transformation requiring delicate negotiations and strategic maneuvering spanning years, rather than months. The legacy he now envisioned extended beyond power and control to creating something his newfound family could openly embrace without shadows or necessary secrets. Zoe arranged place settings with meticulous precision, her confidence blossoming under Aiden's subtle encouragement of her organizational talents. The dining table that once hosted tense negotiations now centered family game nights and homework sessions, its expensive surface occasionally marred by art projects Aiden never complained about. Charlie proudly demonstrated his newly acquired chess skills, explaining strategies with exaggerated seriousness, while Aiden listened with genuine interest rather than feigned patience. The boy who once whispered desperately for help now moved through rooms with secure belonging, his nightmares replaced by ambitious plans involving Aiden's patient mentorship. Thank you all for following this story. If you're enjoying it, write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video, as your support is important for me to continue here.